Hey guys, it's Chris here. I'm back with another video from my course, and this one deals with how to troubleshoot some landscape orientation layout issues, as well as some issues with checking some text fields for empty text fields before submitting data to our database. Before I jump into that lesson, I just want to mention one thing, and that is that I'm not posting these videos from my course to my YouTube channel to entice you guys to join the course. It's just that I've been working on the course and I haven't had that much time to produce new YouTube content, and I don't want to leave you guys hanging. So I genuinely think that what I'm teaching in this course lesson is applicable and helpful for you guys as well, and so that's why I'm posting it here. So there's no hidden agenda. I think that most of you already know that I do have a course on my site, and I've been running it for 3 years, so it's nothing new. This is a bit of new content, some new modules for the course. And I recognize the courses aren't for everybody, so don't be scared that now I'm only focusing on the courses and not YouTube. That's not the case. I do have a lot of content planned for the YouTube channel coming up. It's just that I want to finish off the course first, and I don't want to have a dry spell on my YouTube channel, so I'm posting some stuff from the course here, and I hope you guys can appreciate that, and I hope that it's helpful for you guys too. Okay, so now on to the video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the landscape view for our guidebook app. And you can rotate the simulator by holding down Command and pressing left or right. You can notice immediately that the images in the back of the cells, they're stretched widthwise, so that's going to be a pretty easy fix. Other than that, this scrolls fine. Let's check out the map. There's our map. Map works fine as well. Okay, let me jump back to places. Let's go into one of these guys now. Let's go into Harvest, and you'll notice that the image kind of overflows its boundaries, so we're going to have to set the clipping for that so it doesn't overflow, and maybe adjust the content mode as well for that to reposition it. And this description is fine. The reviews, these reviews are fine. I guess there's some empty ones here, which now that I'm reminded it's a to-do that we have to prevent people from submitting empty reviews. And this write a review, this guy is a problem because there's not enough space for it. So let's go ahead and address these problems one by one. First of all, we're going to jump into the storyboard, and for the UI image view here, I'm just going to set the content mode. By default, it's scale to fill, and I'm going to change it to aspect fill. That's going to correct that problem of the stretching. Now moving on to the detail view controller here. If we take a look at the this is the cell image view, right? Let's see, content view. Wait, looking at the wrong thing here. So down here in the document outline, this is the place image view. This is the top half view here. What we can do actually is we can set for the top half view, we can set clip to bounds. And what that's going to do, because the image view is inside of it, it's not going to show that overflow. It's actually going to clip that. So let's quickly run our app and take a look at our two changes there. Okay, so right away you can see that these are no longer stretched. And now you can see that it also doesn't overflow. Okay, so let's address this one here, this problem of there not being enough space for this child view controller. Right now, this top half is half the screen, and this bottom half from this purple line downwards is the second half of the screen. While this works beautifully, for a profile view, it's again half and half, it doesn't work so well for a landscape view. So what we can do is specifically for the landscape view, change it so that we do maybe 25% for the top and like 75% for the bottom, just a different ratio so we give ourselves more space on the bottom. Okay, so now let's go back into our storyboard and do some cool stuff with the constraints. And let's take a look at which constraint we have to modify here. This one, bottom half equals the top half for the width. Nope, that's not the one we want. We want the height one. So this one is bottom half the height is equal to the top half height. And by making them equal, they will be 50-50, right? Now this multiplier is the value that I want to change for the landscape orientation. So what I can do is I can pull this up here, this tray here, which is dictating what size class we're looking at. If we tap on this landscape icon right here, it's going to change the size class. So you can see this is compact width and compact height. If I go back to the portrait, see this is compact width and regular height. So let's switch it to the landscape one. And for that same constraint that I have highlighted here, bottom half height is equal to top half height. What I want you to notice for these constraints that we have here is here it has this check mark beside installed, right? And that is basically saying that these constraints are installed for any size class. So no matter what device, what orientation, this constraint exists. What we want to do is we want to, let me just get that constraint back here. What we want to do is we want to specifically install a constraint for this size class, compact width and compact height. So how you can do that is you can click this button, very first traits, and you can say that I want to install traits based on both the width and the height. And it's going to take the size class that you're viewing. So I'm viewing the landscape one, which is compact width, compact height. So instantly this bottom part turns blue. And now whenever I'm working with constraints, it's going to install it specifically for this size class rather than for everything. So I'm going to highlight that constraint that we're looking at that equates the two halves for equal height. And I'm going to click this plus icon. And I'm going to add this variation for compact width, compact height, and I'm going to add this variation down here. And I'm going to uncheck installed so that it's not, so that this variation that I'm about to do is only installed for the compact width, compact height. And I'm going to change this multiplier here. So for the bottom half equal to the top half, I'm going to put a multiplier of 2. And that's going to basically say the bottom half's height should be 2 times greater than the top half's height. Now, if for some reason in your project, you might have this reversed. You might have the top half equals the bottom half. In that case, you would want the top half to be equal to 0.5 times the bottom. I hope you understand what I'm saying. This constraint is basically setting the first item. So if you have the first item as the bottom half, like I do, I want the bottom half to be 2 times larger than the top half, right? That's going to give me more space in the bottom half. However, if you have the first item as the top half, then you're basically specifying the height for the top half. So you would say, I want the top half to be half as big as the bottom half's height. So that's why you would put 0.5 if your first item is top half, and if your first item is bottom half, you would put 2. And effectively, that would give you a proportion like this, where the bottom half is 2 times greater than the top half. And again, this is only installed for this size class, which is this landscape size class. So I'm going to click Done Varying now, and I want to make sure that when I go back to the portrait view, right, that you can see that constraint which I modified now is grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Because you can see it's only installed for compact height and compact width, and now I am looking at the compact width and regular height size class. So what I want to do now is I can vary for traits again based on the width and the height, and now I can create a new constraint for the two halves. So hold down Control, drag from the bottom half to the top half, and let's check this one, equal heights. So taking a look at this new constraint that popped up, you can see this one is only installed for compact width and regular height, and this one says the bottom half should be equal to the top half, making them 50-50. Now I'm going to click Done Varying. Now when I click the landscape one, see it uses the other constraint, which is only installed for this guy, and it gives more room for the bottom. If I go back to the portrait, it uses the other constraint, which makes them equal halves. And this is going to give me more space for that right reviews child view controller. So let's run the project. Okay, so you can see here now that I can actually write in the text fields. Now, while I was working on this, one of the things that really bothered me, especially in the landscape view because you don't have much space, is tapping on an empty area to dismiss the keyboard. I did this a lot. I actually tapped this area because this is the biggest empty area you can tap. It looks empty, although the button is actually this full width. So I would tap on this empty area thinking that I just want to dismiss the keyboard, but I would actually submit the review. So I found that really annoying, and that is probably bad design on my part. So I'm actually going to color this button, give it a background, just so you can see where it starts and where it ends. So I'm just going to click this submit button here and quickly change that background color. I'm going to give it this gray color, but at the same time I want to make it kind of have rounded edges because these text fields also have rounded edges. So let me just double check in the right reviews child view controller. Yeah, we do have an outlet for that submit button. So I'm just going to end button, set it right here. Submit button dot layer dot corner radius equals 5.0. Okay, so now let's work on this to do here. Submit tapped. Check that the text field and text field aren't empty. And I'm going to just throw up an alert if they are empty and exit this function if they try to submit kind of an empty text field or text view. So let's say I can check it like this. If name text field dot text, you can see that this is an optional one, right? So if I say it's either nil or maybe name text field, oops, double equal, remember. So if it's nil or if it's completely empty, then return to do show an alert. However, this only checks if the text field hasn't been basically doesn't have any white space in it, or if it's completely empty string. If they for some reason go in the text field and they start pressing spacebar like that, this isn't going to capture that. So what we must do is actually take this text and we need to strip out all white spaces and then check if it's empty string. And you can actually do that pretty easily using some built-in functions. So you can go trimming characters here, and in the character set you can type in character set dot white spaces and new lines, and that is going to take that text field and it's going to trim out all of the white space and then compare it to that. Okay, so I'm gonna just press enter there, and we're going to check if the review text view dot text, and you'll notice that this one is not optional here, right? So there will be something in it. So I'm just going to check it for that. And again, we're going to have to trim it for the character set dot white spaces and new lines. Okay, so those are the three things that we're going to check, and if any of them are empty, we're going to show an alert. So let's quickly drum up an alert here. I don't like using the word error. I'm just going to say almost there. Please double check that you've filled in the name and review fields. And for the style, we're just going to have this as an alert. And we're going to have to add an action to it so the user can dismiss the alert. So let action equals UI alert action. Okay, style is default, handler is nil. And then we're going to add the action to the alert. Add action. Create an alert and action. Show the alert. So we're going to use present. We're going to present the alert. Let's have true for the animated and nothing for the completion. And then this is key because we want to get out of this function after this point so that we don't actually save the review to Firebase. So let's try this out here. Okay, so see, even if I put some spaces in here, I try to click submit, you can see that it doesn't allow me to do it. It doesn't allow me to do it. So anyways, that's great. One more thing that I want to address is this right here. It looks kind of strange. You know, it's functional, but it doesn't look centered. You know, write a review should probably be in the middle there, and description should be in the middle. So I'm going to show you how to vary that as well. And it's actually easier than what we had to do for the other one. Okay, so we're looking at the detail view controller again. And you can see here that this nav button stack is what we need to change, right? If I go into the landscape orientation here, you can see that it does look that kind of strange spaced out look that it's got going on. What we need to change is we had a constraint here for the width of the nav button stack. You can see here that we're saying, this constraint is saying actually, the nav button stack width is equal to the bottom half width minus a constant of 40. And that is going to take 20 from the left, 20 from the right. What we want to change for the landscape specifically is to change this constant to maybe something like 150. So I was playing around with these numbers, and 150 or 140 seems about right to me. Right now it is just minus 40 or negative 40. So what we can do is, again, we can vary for traits. So this is the constraint in question. Let's vary for traits based on the height and the width, because I am looking at the landscape right now. And this time I'm going to add a variation for the constant here. So I'm going to click plus, and this is just double check that, compact, add that, and I'm going to change that for negative 140. And I'm going to click done varying now. So you can see that when I go into portrait mode, it's going to basically use this constant for everything. But if I'm in this size class, compact width, compact height, it's going to use this. So my constraint is installed for everything, right? I didn't have to change this part. I was able to add a specific variation for the constant property of my constraint, which is really cool. The reason why we couldn't do that with the other constraint, you can see here, this bottom half equal the top half constraint. We couldn't do that. We had to create a separate constraint and kind of make this one only installed for this one, because the multiplier, which we wanted to vary on, doesn't have that ability to create a variation for that property, whereas the constant does. So with this nav button stack, it's a lot easier to do. You just create a variation for that specific constant. You don't have to create a new constraint. All right, so see, looks like that. And then if I go back into portrait mode, it looks like that. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye for now.